The Viking longship, sleek, swift, and terrifying, became a symbol of unstoppable power, cutting through the waves like a blade. These ships were more than just vessels, they were the very heart of Viking ambition and legend. Its dragon-headed prows struck fear across Europe, as warriors from Scandinavia raided, traded, and explored distant shores, leaving their mark on history and myth alike. For centuries, their speed and ferocity made them seem invincible, their enemies trembling at the mere sight of their sails on the horizon. But every legend fades. The Viking Age, once so dominant and feared, eventually collapsed, leaving behind only ruins and echoes of its former glory. The question isn't just who defeated them, but what forces truly brought them down. Was it foreign armies or something deeper, something within their own society, their own choices, and their own leaders? The seeds of their downfall were sown by their own hands through decisions and divisions that would ultimately weaken them. This is the story of how the mightiest warriors fell, not by sword alone but by their own undoing, their own internal struggles and mistakes. We'll see how hunger, flawed strategy, and lost leadership unraveled their power, turning strength into vulnerability and unity into discord. The fall of the Vikings is a lesson in how even the strongest can be undone from within, a warning echoing through the ages about the dangers of pride and division. Early Viking raids were wildly successful. Riches seized from unguarded monasteries and terrified towns. The Norsemen struck with speed and ferocity, catching their victims completely off guard. Gold, silver, and precious relics poured into their longships, fueling tales of glory and adventure back home. Word spread, and more men joined, hungry for gold and glory. Young warriors dreamed of returning as legends, their names sung in mead halls across Scandinavia. But soon the easy targets vanished. The element of surprise faded, and the world began to adapt. Coastal settlements fortified, treasures moved inland, and defences grew. Walls rose where there had been none, and watchful eyes scanned the horizon for sails. Vikings had to push deeper, facing real armies and greater risks for shrinking rewards. The days of easy loot were gone, replaced by bloody battles and uncertainty. The promise of wealth faded, raids yielded little but hardship, disillusionment spread. Many began to question if the danger was worth the meagre spoils. Warriors who once dreamed of fortune now fought for scraps. The brotherhood of raiders grew tense as hunger and frustration set in. The great heathen army, once feared, turned to demanding tribute instead of plundering. Negotiation replaced violence, and settlements paid for peace. The predator became a tax collector, less feared, less united. The thrill of conquest faded, replaced by routine and compromise. The empty hoard symbolized a failing strategy. The once overflowing chests now echoed with disappointment. As the rewards dried up, so did the spirit that fueled the Viking war machine. The legendary fire in their hearts began to flicker and fade. The age of easy plunder was over. The longships, once symbols of terror, now sat idle on lonely shores. The Vikings' greatest strength, relentless ambition, became a weakness when there was nothing left to take. Their unity fractured and their purpose blurred. The golden age of raiding was ending, and a new chapter in Viking history was about to begin. Viking longships were built for speed, not for carrying supplies. Short raids worked, they could live off the land, but long campaigns turned deadly. Armies of thousands quickly stripped the countryside bare. Hunger set in. Foraging parties wandered farther, risking ambush. The focus shifted from conquest to survival. Starvation and disease ravaged their camps, as at the siege of Paris. The mighty Viking host was undone not by enemy swords, but by empty stomachs. Time and again, ambitious invasions collapsed from within. Their culture prized quick strikes, not the logistics of occupation. The dream of conquest became a struggle for daily bread. Hunger, not battle, was the silent killer. The Vikings' inability to sustain themselves doomed their greatest campaigns. Viking armies were held together by loyalty to charismatic leaders, not by rigid hierarchy. A great chieftain could unite thousands, but everything depended on him. If he fell, chaos followed. There was rarely a clear successor. Rivalries erupted, unity dissolved, and armies splintered. The death of a leader shattered morale, as at Stamford Bridge when Harold Hardrada fell. The invasion collapsed, not from enemy strength, but from lost leadership. Their strength was personal, not institutional. When the leader died, so did the cause. Viking armies could become bickering mobs overnight. Their greatest flaw, all power rested in a single man. When he was gone, so was their hope. The longship gave Vikings unmatched mobility and surprise, letting them appear suddenly along distant coasts and rivers. Their ships could slip through shallow waters, allowing them to strike deep inland where no one expected them. They struck where and when they chose, vanishing before defenders could react. Villages and monasteries lived in constant fear, never knowing when the next raid would come. But when they settled and tried to hold land, everything changed. The freedom of the sea was traded for the responsibilities of settlement and defense. Defending territory meant staying put, building forts, garrisoning towns, and watching over their new homes. They became predictable, tied down, and vulnerable, forced to guard what they had taken instead of roaming free. Enemies could now gather forces and attack on their terms, planning sieges and counterattacks that the Vikings could no longer avoid. Vikings, once elusive raiders, became just another army fighting set-piece battles, losing the advantage of surprise and speed. At Edington, Alfred the Great forced them into a decisive defeat, showing how vulnerable they had become when forced to stand and fight. By trading mobility for land, they lost their edge. Their legendary longships sat unused while they worked the fields. The seaborne predators became static defenders and were outmatched by organized armies and new tactics. Their greatest weapon, surprise, was lost, and with it the fear they once inspired faded away. The transformation from raiders to rulers made them ordinary, as they blended into the societies they once terrorized. In becoming landowners, they lost what made them legendary: the wild spirit of the sea and the power to strike without warning. The final blow came from within Scandinavia itself. Christianity spread, replacing the old warrior religion with new values: peace, humility, order. Kings consolidated power, building stable kingdoms and national armies. Raiding lost its honor and purpose. Young men found new paths to wealth and status at home. The Viking spirit was tamed by church and crown. The dragon ships gave way to trading vessels. The warrior became a farmer, a merchant, a subject of the king. The age of the raider faded, not in defeat, but in transformation. The world changed, and so did the Vikings. The legend ended, not with a battle, but with a new beginning.